Sally Ann here. Have you ever caught yourself thinking or saying to yourself, this time I'll stick to it? You start the week feeling organised and motivated, but then life gets busy and something stressful comes up, and suddenly it feels like you've fallen off track again. I hear this so often from women, especially in their mid-40s and beyond. And that quiet frustration is always there in the background. Why can't I stay consistent with healthy eating? But what if it's not about you having to follow diet rules? In today's episode, in recognition of International No Diet Day, I'm going to explore a different way at looking at this problem. I'll share a story about a client, probably very much like yourself, believed she was really committed to her health, but struggled sticking to a healthy eating plan. When things went astray, she felt like she'd fallen off the wagon again. But I'm also going to share how a shift in focus helped her move from dieting to understanding what was driving her eating. And this shift really changed everything for her. Because when you understand why you're eating, you can start to make choices that truly support your health without the pressure of another diet. Eating is influenced by multiple drivers: biological, psychological, dietological, and sociological. And when I talk about biological drivers, it's things like your health, your goals for your health, whether you're tuning into your physical hunger, satiety, and fullness cues, and whether sleep or lack of quality sleep is interfering with these drivers. Psychological drivers, on the other hand, are those emotional eating habits that have developed, or your beliefs about food and your ability to change your eating habits. Dietological drivers, I don't know if it's a real word, but it really is just about all of the information that you have gained about food from different diet plans that you followed. Unfortunately, much of this is contradictory. And the sociological drivers include things like your food culture, what you learned from your family of origin about eating. It also includes your perception of body image. What you soon find out when you first start observing your drivers for eating, that there's no one perfect way of eating. But it's this awareness of your eating choices that allow you to make changes that actually stick. This understanding also allows you to adjust to the ups and downs of life, as Judy explained in episode 112. But now let me show you how these drivers for eating work in real life. One of my clients who was living with type 2 diabetes was really struggling to manage her blood sugar levels. And like most of the women that I work with, she tried sticking to a healthy eating plan, but just couldn't keep to it, and then felt like a failure. Everything spiraled and she felt like she'd failed again. Once she started her coaching program, though, she had a big realization. She realized that she hadn't been making time for herself. She was frustrated. She'd sort of take 2 steps forward with mindful eating, then a step back, and just wondered why her momentum kept stalling. What she realized is that she had been prioritizing her time around her children and also her grandchildren. The big shift that she had to make was to plan time for her health and to start seeing her self-care as not being selfish, but actually essential. She learnt to book in time for all of the things that actually helped her sustain healthier eating, including things like planning and preparing healthier meals for herself, making sure she got that walk with her friend a couple of times a week. And one of the things that was really helpful for her was a short daily mindfulness practice. So even though my client really was committed to her health and thought she was prioritizing the health driver, she realized that new health behaviors take time, and we have to create some space in our life to do this. And also give ourselves permission to make that time. The tough thing for her was learning to sometimes say no to her loved ones so she could make sure her time for herself was a priority. As my client established her mindful eating practice, she learnt to observe her eating patterns without judgment and with curiosity and a bit of fun. Actually, she really was able to tune into what physical hunger was compared to eating for other reasons. And once she started trusting her hunger cues, but also that cue that told her, I've had enough, she noticed that her portion sizes also started changing. I just want to take a pause here and ask, when was the last time you truly tuned in to your physical hunger? Whilst tuning into hunger and satiety was a really important step for my client, she also had to look at having nutritious and enjoyable food available. My client's partner prepared the evening meals and she prepared her breakfast and lunch. But she did have a stubborn habit of often skipping lunch or just grabbing something on the run, like a piece of cake or some toast with peanut butter. And while she knew these choices weren't the best for her diabetes, it's something that we had to gradually work through. So we looked at a list of convenient and nourishing breakfast and lunches that would be ready or nearly ready at meal times, so there wasn't a lot of preparation involved. And this reduced that last minute decision making around food because she had some nourishing and enjoyable options available. I know it seems obvious, but convenient, healthy food has to be there for us to eat it. If the food's not there, it's got nothing to do with willpower. It is to do with being realistic and planning mindfully for simple meals that you enjoy. And these don't have to be all made from scratch. You can eat leftovers, you can repurpose leftovers, and even semi-prepared meals that you purchase from a supermarket or a co-op can be nutritious choices as well. By staying curious and observing her eating habits, my client started to really understand some emotional and stress eating patterns. She had been aware of them, but we had been working on these other drivers. So in time, it became appropriate to look at these. We were able to talk through some of the triggers for her stress and, most importantly, put some things in place that reduced her stress. As I've already mentioned, a short daily mindfulness practice was really beneficial. The walk with a friend was always, it was social, it was fun, and it was also meaning she was moving. Her vegetable garden was really important to her as well. So making sure she had time in her vegetable garden a few times a week was also a priority. And interestingly enough, eating chocolate still became one of her ways of soothing her emotions. But instead of eating a whole block of chocolate mindlessly and feeling quite unwell afterwards, she said to me, I can just take one square of chocolate. I let it sit on my tongue and melt. And she said, one piece is enough. It makes me feel so good. And I don't feel like I have actually blown anything. But most importantly, what my client learned was that emotional eating isn't a failure. It's just information. It was a learning process for her, and because we approached it with curiosity, we actually enjoyed establishing strategies that helped her reduce her stress but also reduce emotional eating. With this deeper understanding of her eating habits, my client was able to apply her food knowledge and and her experience cooking food to her immediate health needs. And at times, her diabetes would cause her concern. So she started recording her blood sugar levels with her journal alongside her level of hunger and fullness and the food choices. And what this allowed her to do was see what was having that impact on her blood glucose levels. And what excited her most of all is that we could introduce changes to her food choices and they would have an immediate effect on her blood sugars. And for the first time, she actually felt that she could influence her health. Something that I hadn't been aware of when my client first started her coaching program was she had a hidden struggle. She avoided looking at herself in the mirrors because of the weight gain she had experienced over the past 10 years. She didn't feel comfortable in her body, and this meant she just didn't like how she looked. But the mindful eating approach that she adopted shifted her focus from weight and how she looked onto why, what, when, and how she ate. They were things that she had total control over. She noticed after a few weeks and shared with me that she had more energy. She felt more confident and positive around food and herself, and her confidence was increasing. Later, she explained to me, I'm no longer concerned about how my body looks because I feel so good. I am healthier and I feel much happier. She did lose some weight with her mindful eating program. It wasn't just to do with her food choices, it was also to do with her regular movement as well. But what really shifted her body image was how well she felt, not really her appearance. What my client described as a bonus and was a bit of a surprise to her was that from eating mindfully, she was able to enjoy food, and food became a pleasure. By stopping, sitting down and savouring her food, she enjoyed the aromas, flavours, textures of her food, and especially the foods from her own garden. She also enjoyed the freedom of there not being any restrictions around food, just the awareness of what was driving her eating. Even when she chose that square of chocolate to soothe uncomfortable emotions, she ate it mindfully, and that allowed her to realize that one piece was enough to get that soothing smoothness of the chocolate and to feel like she had done something to care for herself. Eating for pleasure is not a problem, but when we're not aware of what is driving us to eat or overeat, then the pleasure driver can actually override our goals and our drive for health. But with a mindful approach and guidance from a qualified healthcare practitioner, you can have both. You can have health and enjoy your food. So over a period of several months, my client transformed 7 of the 9 drivers for eating that I mention in the Eating for You approach, but she didn't do them all at once. We just transformed one at a time. We started with her health driver, making sure she actually had time in her calendar, in her day, to do the things that supported her health. We then looked at helping her tell the difference between eating for physical hunger versus eating for other reasons. And this uncovered the need to have healthy, convenient food available. And that was really important because, as I said earlier, the food's not there, you can't eat it. Emotional eating was the next driver that we looked at, and putting strategies in place to support her to reduce stress, but also stress eating. As she became more aware of her eating patterns and more empowered to make changes herself, being able to use her food knowledge and meal choices to change her blood sugar levels was such a big reward for her to actually feel that she could influence her health. And even though she had this hidden struggle with body image, by observing and appreciating the health benefits that she had, how her body looked became less of a concern to her. She was comfortable in her own skin. The two drivers that weren't relevant to my client were food preferences, because there were no barriers here for her. Similarly, she was able to eat in alignment with her own ethical and spiritual beliefs around food. So again, no conflict that we had to resolve there. It's common to have more than one driver for eating that needs a tweak, but we never do it all at once. And remember, mindful eating is not about eating perfectly. It's about being aware of what's driving your eating, and it's this awareness that creates change that lasts. And the reason why diets fail is that they ignore these drivers for eating. And mindful eating works because it builds that awareness that we've been talking about. It supports flexibility and it helps you create trust in food and yourself. So please consider this. You don't need another diet, just a deeper understanding of why you eat. And this International No Diet Day, which is May 6th, however, if you listen to this after May 6th, I still encourage you to do this. Have a day where you choose curiosity about your eating habits versus control of what you're eating. I'd love to hear how that goes, so please reach out to me and let me know how you go with that one. I also invite you to reflect which driver is influencing your eating today. And if you're aware that you have an eating habit that you cannot shift, then please don't keep struggling alone. I do offer a free 30-minute mindful eating strategy call, and that's really about me understanding what your challenges are around your eating habits. And if I can help you, then I will outline a personalised plan. If I'm not the best person to help you, I will also do my best to refer you to someone who can. Next week on the podcast, I'm really excited to share a conversation for Dietitians Week with my guest, Laureate Professor Claire Collins. And we are going to dig quite deep into the convenience driver for eating. And I'm talking about healthy, convenient, and affordable food that will support your health goals. Thanks for listening. And if you have enjoyed this episode, please share it on your social media pages and pass the link on to a friend. I look forward to sharing with you again next week.